Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode, we're doing Revolution. The topic for this Revolutionaries, the ninth wonder of the world, the one and only Chyna, aka Joni Lauer. Now, I've mentioned in these Revolutionaries videos when I first came up with this concept to kind of talk about why specific wrestlers are so revolutionary in the business. This was one of the first names that came to my mind. I have a whole list of them that I'm going to do eventually, and this was one that I really wanted to do. I'm not going to go down a deep dive of her career. If you haven't seen these before, this is basically me touching on how I think they impacted and changed pro wrestling. And with Chyna, I mean, everybody knows her story. Everybody knows this. So this is more me just giving her flowers. As awesome as she was, I wish she was still around so she could see a video like this and see all the love that she gets now, whether it be from wrestlers or podcasters or YouTubers like myself. But with all that being said, let's get into it. The biggest impact I think that Chyna had in wrestling was changing the perception of what a woman in wrestling could be. And in America specific, there had been bigger women that wrestled before, but most of them kind of were on the comedic side. Think of the amazing Rhonda Singh as Bertha Faye, and that's kind of where you get that from. But Chyna kind of flipped the script and broke the mold. She kind of changed what it meant to be. There had been bodyguards like Diesel before her. There had been a long history of chicken shit heels having a bigger guy on the outside of the ring to basically be their muscle. But for this presentation, it wasn't a guy, it was a woman. And not just any woman, Chyna. So Chyna was just as physically impressive and as big, if not bigger, than a lot of the men. Without Chyna, I don't think we have the rise of some of the intergender stuff, whether you like it or not, and some of the women taking more seriously. You can look at the lens of wrestling in 2025, at the end of 2025 is when I'm recording this, and look at the lens of 1996, 1997, when Chyna first burst on the scene in WWF. There was nothing like her before that, and she became a trailblazer. She became, like I said, the first female enforcer. She became the first woman to be in the Royal Rumble and stayed that way until Karma Awesome Khan got in there. She is still the only woman that's won the Intercontinental Championship. So yeah, she did some definitely groundbreaking things. She proved that a woman could be a main eventer. So much so that there has long been stories that Chyna was considered to be a world champion at one point. She was going to beat Steve Austin. And if you think about during the time and you go back, like they would do or TV Guide magazines and they'd have wrestlers on the cover and it would be The Rock, Austin, Chyna. They were basically your three biggest stars. Put in Triple H, The Undertaker, Kurt Angle into that mix as well. But she was such a game changer. It's so different than the way anybody else perceived a women's wrestler before. I would say the wrestlers that have came after, the Beth Phoenixes, the Awesome Kongs, they would not have got the spot that they got without Chyna. And then even to this day, like Raquel Rodriguez, Rhea Ripley, Jade Cargill, definitely, you would not see any of those three women in the roles that they're in without Chyna. Even when you look at NXT and formerly a TNA, when you look at Jordynne Grace, she's basically an updated version of Chyna. Chyna laid that path. She laid the groundwork for a woman to be both big and strong and also beautiful. Gotta remember, Chyna was in Playboy back in the day, and if it's not the best-selling issue of Playboy, it was the best-selling issue of Playboy for a very long time. And for those of you kids that are too young to remember Playboy, imagine if Pornhub came out once a month and it was a magazine. Chyna would have been, I don't know, whoever the biggest star on Pornhub is right now. I can't even think of names of them. Sorry, it's not my game anymore. I'm not a young man anymore. But she did so much, and it's not just the women that she inspired. She inspired men. She inspired me. Her work with Jeff Jarrett and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho, it helped all of their career. You could say that Chyna was one of the catalysts that pushed Eddie Guerrero to the top, and same thing with Chris Jericho. Everything she touched basically turned to gold. Unfortunately, I don't think that Chyna never quite understood just how important she was to the world of wrestling and to all of the fans, and that's part of her downfall and part of her demise. But I just wanted to come and kind of keep this kind of short. I know everybody knows the story of Chyna, but we're going to give her flowers. I wish she would have been here to see this. I wish she would have been here to see all the recognition and name check she gets from wrestlers like Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill and everybody else. I hope wherever she is, her soul is resting and it's in peace because she deserves it. Such a beautiful soul, such a beautiful wrestler, a beautiful person from everything I've ever heard. I don't think I've heard anyone talk negatively about Chyna ever. Even people that she had issues with, I haven't heard them talk about her negatively. But I just wanted to point out how much she affected pro wrestling and the changes to what wrestling and what a woman's wrestler could be. Especially in the WWF/WWE, I don't think you'd ever have a woman in the main event if you didn't have Chyna first. But with all that being said, my name is George Coles, and you've been watching Revolutionaries.